I have a Google Doc that I'll be referencing while doing this video, but these are 4 things I would want to know when I was younger. 4 types of things to say to my younger self. I'm not going to say anything that's particularly new, but maybe add a bit of different context, say in a different way, as a different person, that helps give, hopefully me, my younger self, but also you, the person behind the screen listening to this, more permission to be as you are, to do as you do. And the types of things that I think really can help create a sense of self-awareness and steadiness in your life. One of my pet peeves in life is unsolicited advice. Although it's well-meaning, advice I've received doesn't help sustain habitual behavior for me because it doesn't add the type of context to my life, the barriers, frame of thinking, my current way of self-talk, the environment, resource constriction, among other factors. So one of my favorite pieces of advice is kind of taken from Alex Hormozy, which is take advice from those who are where you want to be, living the life you want, and who have helped others achieve similar, especially someone from your shoes. For example, I'm interested in real estate investing. There was a couple that I know who have done well for themselves. They've accumulated a portfolio of residential homes, condos, successfully doing even 1031 exchanges, deferring that capital gains tax. And I talked to them about buying property. They know the nuances of escrow, down payments, lots, zoning, easements, the type of things that you only know after having that lived experience. And that's really great when you have mentors like that who can essentially give you a shortcut on life because they've gone through the things that you want to do. But they might not be living the life that you want as well. And for me, what that looks like is having an uninformed optimism of the life they lead that you don't get to know until you've talked to them a little bit more and to see how actually worthwhile the sacrifices they've made are in order to get to this picture of life that you may not actually want to compromise for. So in this example, as I talk to them a little bit more, they don't turn on the AC, or if they do it infrequently. They wash clothing only during off-peak hours. They carpool, shop at Costco, rarely eat out. They probably eat a circulating set of 5 to 7 meals a month, reheating leftovers, chicken, more chicken, chicken with rice, air-fried chicken, chicken with soy sauce. And it became less of a surprise to me how they've the financial habits to accumulate rental properties like this. They have done a great job of reducing their expenses. And, to also, again, say more from Alex Hormozy, wealth is a ratio between income and expenses. And if by decreasing your expenses, that's one way of mastering minimizing costs. And when you compound that over the course of years, you now have a lot more money to play around with for down payments and such. The thing is, I wouldn't want their life. I'd get tired of eating the same thing over and over again, week after week. I don't spend lavishly. I don't spend any designer clothes, no expensive concerts. But that's not the life I'd want to live. And one of the things I'd want to tell my younger self to give them more permission, that younger self more permission, is take advice from people who make the types of sacrifices you're willing to make. It's not that I don't want to sacrifice. I know it's kind of unpopular to hear me sort of articulate, I want to sacrifice less. I would reframe that and say, I want to sacrifice differently. Sacrifice is unavoidable for any of our goals, whether it's for more education, for fitness, for rental investments. It's a different type of self-amputation though. And you want to do one that's proportional to what you're willing to risk and what is proportional to what you're willing to tolerate for your life. And this reminds me of the idea of say in fitness, people who want to start a diet and the exercise routine is too intense and they regain the weight that they lost. No long-term habitual change occurs for them because they were pushed too far into the lifestyle that, although beneficial and closer to their goals, isn't sustainable. Taking 19 steps forward in the health positive direction, but taking 25 steps back versus someone who says, instead of saying no to all Pepsi, let me just change my Pepsi to a Diet Coke. You take 3 steps forward in the health positive direction and maybe 2 steps back. You're still net positive. And we sort of, I think, glorify people who grind themselves into the ground through merit and suffer for their achievements. But I see a recipe for burnout, fatigue, resentment, the type of overwhelm that demands that lifestyle. And it's inactionable fantasy. It's good to think about, but it doesn't really sustain you. Advice number 2. No one else is responsible for validating the steps you take in your life except yourself. One of the things I'm really big on is getting mentors, networking, really meeting with a range of different people. Often I do it from a perspective of just wanting to really save my time and be efficient. By having mentors, you get a shortcut on life because they give you insights that save you. They know the right website that's relevant for you. They know how to navigate that website, which reduces the amount of clicks you have to go through. They open doors for you so that you don't have to cold call, cold email. They know the right person to talk to help with your goals. And I often volunteer a lot of information to these older, more farther in my career people, hoping that they would almost like scoop me up like a baby bird and help me out. But at some point, unknowingly to me, and I've only been recently been made more conscious to it, is that I tell all of this almost in a very parental quality of looking for validation from them, looking for them to say something like, as I pursue these goals, how great that is. I've encountered more often people who don't value the same things that I do, yet I tell them these things with the same earnest intention of almost having my heart be soothed by them. And that's, I find, a very implicit performative goal to want to hear these nice things, whatever niceties they could say. I remember in high school wanting to watch different YouTube videos, and all of these YouTube videos on motivation, you insert some fun, loud action edit, and I could tell even then what I was doing is accumulating a set of statements, a set of rah-rah cheerleading to give me permission to act. And that's not often different from my interactions with some of the mentors that I have, which is waiting for them to validate the steps I want to take in my life so that I have the same permission to act. When in fact, I should just do as I want to do the things I am pleased by. Another little story about that is my parents in high school just wanted me to do school, just focus on school, very traditional in that way. Without telling them, I walked out the house, I went to Home Depot, and I gave an interview, or I had an interview scheduled beforehand. I gave a resume, and I had the job the next day. This is, to me, a great example of just having an initiative and not waiting for someone to say, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Oh my gosh, that's a wonderful thing to do as a young adult during your summers. Just go do it. Just do what you want to do. And that's a lot more words than hearing the phrase, just do it from Nike. But to me, adds an important type of context and frame of thinking that really helps me and hopefully my younger self just take more action in life. Advice point number 3. Say no more often. Pursue an unapologetic and self-aware frame of your world and your identity. I learned to say no more often in university when different people who wanted to do projects, side projects, not necessarily class projects for points, or wanted to hang out on a weekday night, which would otherwise interfere with my studies at the time for nursing. I really enjoy the lesson of saying no, because to me, I've reframed my thoughts that no, especially in the context of social settings, is less about rejection, but more about self-preservation. It's setting a boundary. It's saying, I respect my time. I have a sense of what I like and I don't like, and creating a very frank and unapologetic line in the ground, line in the sand. Every yes you make comes at the expense of something else, and that's economics, if you will, opportunity cost. You say yes to hanging out, to go bowling. That is now an evening that you might not get with studying, or an evening that you don't get to go to sleep as early as you normally would for the 12-hour shift you have the next morning. You say no to this outing of going at the beach. Maybe you don't like the beach. You think it's too all the sand in between your toes. You're gonna get a sunburn. And it's just refusing all of these detours, assuming that you genuinely don't like the things that you are saying no to, and having that confidence to say no more often. I did not have that initial confidence to say no when I went in university. And so I would often find myself in self-scrutiny after a social outing, because now I'm getting upset at myself as to how little hours I have to study for a test, to work on this care plan, this clinical packet, or to do some other thing that recharges my battery. You know, you, the person behind the screen watching this video, is probably your first encounter with me, but maybe you read on my personalities, you can already tell I'm more the cerebral, introverted type. And I don't say that as a pejorative, as a label that fixes you within a frame, cerebral introvert. I take that not as a barricade, but a filter. And I filter my experiences and the opportunities that come my way as either enhancing those experiences or being tolerable, or otherwise not going to fit the size of the filter. And the finer that filter gets to when you say no more often, you start recognizing more consistently what aligns with your identity, and what everything else is just noise. Being unapologetic doesn't have to be hostile. You can be kind, saying no to this different opportunity, this free labor, this volunteering thing that people want you to do, and you don't have to feel guilty about it. Once you achieve a state of so many X inputs of having said yes so many times, but then being upset at yourself Y times as well. For example, when I was in university, different social circles wanted me to hang out with them. I don't drink alcohol, I don't smoke, I don't vape. If I'm offered it, I decline. I don't dance tango, I don't go to clubbing either. I don't like sports. I don't have that hand-eye coordination. People ask me to be part of their basketball or dodgeball team. I decline. And all of this I know sounds very stubborn and, almost this, lowercase u unattractive quality, because it's very inflexible, a bit asocial. But I am pretty confident already with previous experience that in all of those settings, I for the most part, on a spectrum, feel uncomfortable. It feels high friction. And it's just not something that I enjoy. So then why do you do something that you don't enjoy? You do it out of obligation. You do it out of wanting to have a strong social attitude, but yet you're still grumpy even in those social settings. So why would you tolerate that for yourself? And I think that's something I would try to practice more at a younger age, is just saying, you know yourself. You're pretty consistent, intellectually consistent at this time. So why do you keep obligating yourself to things that you don't even enjoy? Who are you trying to serve? And why isn't it you who you're primarily serving there? And that assertiveness and awareness, I think, is helpful to a young adolescent forming their identity still. Because your ability to say no is your ability to say yes to you and yes to what you enjoy and what you like. Advice number 4, bullet point number 4, you might be out of sequence. Sometimes what I think I needed is a reminder to be patient. In high school, I watched a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk. Deploy more patience, be patient. There's a rush to be someone by 20, 28, 35, 43, a pressure to have achieved, to have met this glorious picture of affluence, status, prestige, to have arrived to that state. But one thing I like about Gary V's content is the self-love, the acceptance and self-awareness that you deploy, because we are trying to be someone, but you're someone. You're someone right now, as you are. In high school, I naively convinced myself I could flip stocks. I could drop ship, I could day trade my way to millions. I took bad examples. I took my money from Home Depot as a cashier and was humbled by bad stock picks, specifically AMC stocks. In hindsight, I could have used that capital for other things, maybe in just playing it safe, index funds, or saving it up in high yield savings account. But instead, what I had the impression of is I could play the odds. I'm young, I could be risky, multiply that wealth with more speculation, and instead of compounding that earned money in something more safe. Being out of sequence looks like just being insufficient with the place that you are in life right now. You're trying to do things fast and in a place where you don't want to take the more humbler route. So as to save yourself the hard work that you're enduring. What that means to me, what this bullet point advice means to me, is out of sequence. Really, you think that you're going to make millions from doing AMC stock trades, ride the moon, get GameStop and everything, but you're in the right sequence of go to school, do education, do your prerequisites for nursing, do well on the TEAS exam, ATI TEAS 7. Now you're in nursing school, pass nursing school, do well on the NCLEX, and hopefully get into a new grad residency program. It's far less sexy. It doesn't have this instantaneous luck, and it is a type of sequential steps that you want to bypass, or at least I did. I wanted to bypass that. Hopefully you get lucky when you see that California lottery ticket, right? And moving through instead of more rational order. And that's something I would probably tell myself at a younger age, is you're trying to skip the line. That's not to say that you have to fit within defined parameters, right? You tell a fish you can't climb a tree, or whatever, how that quote goes. And, being out of sequence doesn't mean you have to put yourself on a fixed life path, especially life paths that your parents tell you to abide by, or society tells you to abide by, or high school counselor tells you to have that natural momentum of your A through E general education credits. You're trying to cross all these rivers, but it's so high friction. You're crossing rivers instead of just going with the flow of the current. And it comes off as defiant, urgent, and frustrating. And instead, by deploying more patience and saying, well, I'm humble in this process. I don't need to rush past it. I don't need to have my online business. I don't need to set up my LLC, get my W-2 income, and escape out of the W-2 grind to become a 1099 tax form. I don't need to get all this rental income, this successful YouTube channel right now. I get all the ad revenue, the delicious sponsorship, sponsored by Squarespace, NordVPN, ExpressVPN. You can be okay starting at zero, playing the long game, and beginning in slow, humbling, not sexy sequences. Like this video, for example, a very long, no edited video, because this is what taking a baby step looks like. Low friction. And that's okay, if you choose to perceive it as okay. You can't skip steps without cost, and patience doesn't have to be passive. It could still be considered a deliberate choice if you interpret it that way, because what it's doing is that it's preparing you to scaffold skill to skill to skill. Scaffolding a skill, which is being more okay hearing my own voice on video, being more okay with taking video and seeing myself talking to the camera. You scaffold that skill. Then maybe you scaffold the skill later on to editing out the ums in a video, making it shorter, more concise, developing a more accurate, shorter script rather than being extemporaneous with it and coming off the fly, but also making the YouTube video longer. And you just can enjoy being within the sequence, because you trying to be out of the sequence of these skill sets, whether it's YouTube video making, nursing, trying to be socioeconomically stable. It's okay to play the long game in all of this, and to not skip forward. Similar to an idea in education called Vygotsky's zones of proximal development. You start off, you get your basics, and then you advance your Bloom's taxonomy, if you will, of different learning objectives. So right now I'm doing a very simple YouTube video, no edits, just talking. I'm a normal person talking to the camera, giving candid, not very edited takes. Then as I progress through this, maybe I could change the thumbnail. Maybe I could put more edits. I could have B-reel content. I could put a J-cut, an I-cut. I could do different cinematography things. But that's too far, and it's too in the future casting. It's good steps, but take you where you are in the sequence and being just a part of the process. It's all a part of the process. So again, I haven't really said anything new. I even referenced different people who've already commented on similar topics. All that I've really done is said it in a different way and adding different context. And as you can tell, there's a bit of a theme here about the type of assertiveness, permissibility of behavior and action, confidence and identity that I'm trying to portray as types of things I think younger version me, and perhaps you who's listening to this behind the screen, would benefit from hearing. These are the types of things that I find very high yield. more high yield than very niche granular things about how to read an SEC Q10 report to look at a stock, or to look at how to prime IV tubing in the context of IV med administration. These are the types of things that matter to you as a human who interfaces with different social settings and continued challenges. And I think this is absolutely relevant to growth and maturity. So hope that you found value from this content, and appreciate you watching the video.